What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what the Fed just said that's super important for the markets and how this may dictate NIO's share price in the future going forward. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details and talk about what my price prediction is for NIO for the short term, what I do expect to be happening very soon, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free NIO share, a free Tesla share, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 2 weeks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at NIO, this thing's down 1.71% for the day. And once again, I need to prioritize what the Fed just said because that will dictate how NIO and the market ends up moving. Now, looking at the way NIO is looking right now, it looks like it's very distributive in my honest opinion, which is often a bearish signal. But now when I say this, all right, in the context of what Jerome Powell said, I could actually see the bears taking over in this market for the short term. Or by short term, I mean like medium term. And I do believe the market's going to be set for some downside. I'm going to just put that out there as quick as I can. Now, why do I say this? Well, what's happening is if we look at what happened yesterday, all right, on SPY, we basically confirmed the fact that the bulls are not as strong as many people thought. Looking at this double top rejection on SPY, I mean, we made this big move to the upside, we gapped up, and we just crashed after that. We've been on this downtrend. And on top of that, Jerome Powell said something that the market's not going to like. Powell mentioned, and this is what the Fed decided to do, the terminal rate hike. All right, this is going to be the final rate hike, the overall rate hike. It was supposed to be 4.5% before, at least that was the projection. And it just increased to 5.1%. This means that the Fed is going to raise rates again in 2023. Now, on top of that, Jerome Powell did mention other things. He kind of spoke in circles and said some things I didn't really agree with. He mentioned that a soft landing still is technically possible in his eyes. I really disagree with that, though, because I read online that historically the Fed has never actually given us a soft landing during times like these. And on top of that, he mentioned the fact that unemployment is still relatively strong. Employment, the jobs market is still relatively strong, and unemployment is what is still set to be projected to go up. They believe that unemployment is going to reach over 4.6% for next year, or by the end of next year. And they also believe that there is still more pain to come. So Powell implied that the Fed is going to be raising the rates and keeping them high until inflation truly starts to cool off. And he does not have any specific date set for how long they're going to keep the rates higher. Right? He doesn't know exactly when they're going to start quantitative easing, the pivot. He basically mentioned that it's going to depend on the data. And he didn't really say much else other than that. He wasn't extremely hawkish or even like very dovish, but the overall news that they are going to be raising rates again in 2023, talks about the recession, the earnings recession, and other issues like that could actually set the market for more potential downside, especially because of projections that are not the best for 2023. Now, looking at what else is going on, I think Jerome Powell mentioned that the projected GDP is supposed to be very flat for the year, which is not the best of signs. But he did mention that in his opinion, it does not meet the requirements for a recession. That's obviously kind of subjective at this point in time. And honestly, guys, I mean, different people have different views on it, but I do believe that we are going to enter a recession in 2023 regardless. Now, I want to now transition into NIO. What's going on with NIO? So anyways, when it comes to the market, okay, things are not looking the best. We are going to likely see the stock market come down over the next few weeks, next month or so. I do believe a downtrend is going to be respected. In regards to that, you must note that NIO has lower volume, which is not the best of signs. And on top of that, we also notice that NIO's overall shorts volume percentage is on this big decline. And what tends to happen when it comes down like this, for instance, like this position right over here, it happened. NIO's share price tends to drop a little bit afterwards as time goes on, maybe 1 to 2 months afterwards. So I do believe NIO has some downside coming. I also want to note that looking at how NIO is performing, it is declining in terms of its relative strength. This has been on a bit of a downtrend right here, not the best of signs. And if the whole market starts tanking very soon, NIO is going to get dragged down. NIO is green 51% of the time. We're going to see if that can actually continue. But as of right now, things are not looking too perfect. Seeing the short interest on this big decline, I wouldn't be surprised if more shorts start to pile in and we see the short interest start to go up. Now, looking at the charts, I mentioned this double top rejection on SPY is not looking good, but there is a little bit of hope for the bulls technically, and that's the fact that we are still in this trend line. We're still above it, so there is a little bit of hope, but overall, it's not very strong, and it looks more like the bears are gaining control. If you zoom out of the charts, this is what it's looking like. Once again, we're on like the lower end of this channel, but it looks more like SPY is going to get ready to start coming down. I do believe we might shop a little bit because we have some support right here around this trend line area. And if that's the case, I mean, I think my line just got rejected because it got adjusted because I changed the time frame. But anyways, we have support around here. We're going to try to hold it, but eventually I do anticipate a drop to come. And I do believe that if SPY doesn't hold 393, this thing's going to have to retest the demand zone at 390. And if we fail at 390, all right, this thing's going to come down to 385. And I don't think it's just going to stop at 385. At that point, it's most likely going to go for the gap fill. And we see SPY come all the way down to about 375 to 380. I could see that happening over the next few weeks, unfortunately. And if this is the case, it's going to likely drag NIO down. I want to be honest with everyone. This is what NIO looks like right now. As you guys could see, NIO is kind of curling as of right now. And on top of that, NIO has been on this channel where it's bouncing between like a little bit under or about 12, between there and about 13.5, with some exceptions being earlier. And as you can see, we're starting to decline in value. NIO is starting to respect the downtrend. Notice how like we were touching these higher values. We hit 14 about 2 weeks ago, a little bit less than that. Then all of a sudden last week comes and we start hitting like 13.5, 13.6. Then this week comes and now NIO's barely in the 12s. It's just holding the 12s. It actually touched 13 in one instance yesterday, but it's clearly starting to decline. And I wouldn't be surprised if NIO starts to curl to the downside and we see NIO start to retest these lower levels. Now, if NIO breaks below 11.33, this thing has potential to come tumbling down to the mid $10 range or even lower than that. So please, please, please watch your charts very carefully and be ready for this. Now, what do I think is going to happen tomorrow? It really depends on the market. The market could start to tank as soon as tomorrow, so this could affect NIO. I do believe that NIO is in a very critical territory because over the last few days, NIO has been on this decline, and then NIO is barely sitting at support, the demand zone at 12 or a little bit below 12, like 11.95 to 12. NIO barely touched that and then barely pushed above it after the FOMC meeting took place, and NIO barely closed at 12.1. So we're barely 10 to 15 cents away from the demand zone. We're not looking too strong right now, guys, especially because Tesla's are also taking a big hit, making new lows for the year, not looking good in my opinion. So in my opinion, guys, it's looking like if the market starts to decline, I believe that the market is going to decline eventually. But what could happen first is we either kind of chop around a bit first before the big drop, maybe like next week, maybe within 2 weeks, or we just start crashing from this point on. I mean, either one is like very possible. In that case, what this tells me is NIO is likely just going to chop around between like 12.4 to 12.5 around there to about 12. We either chop back and forth for a little bit longer before this thing comes down and breaks below 11.95 and we see the mid 11s come, or this thing just tanks starting tomorrow. Either way, it's looking more bearish. That's just my honest opinion. Looking at the charts, they really suggest that. And I do believe the collective market will start to affect NIO more because when you look at what happened historically, the market did play a big role in dictating how NIO was moving. Compare NIO to the QQQ, right? You guys could see for the first 7 months of the year, NIO was heavily dictated by the QQQ. And I just want to note that, look, when things like this happen, it's not because NIO is a bad company. All right. I want everyone to remember that NIO is not a bad company when there are issues in the market. It just ends up affecting NIO and how the overall stocks end up moving. Now, for some reason, this isn't working. I can't really compare this to the QQQ, but it's completely fine. I mean, you guys get the point. My point is, as you could see in this trend, where we pushed up like this, now we're starting to decline like this, and we might slowly start to come down like this, okay? So please be ready for it. It really depends on when the market starts tanking, but it could happen very, very soon. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is, despite the downtrend that we are essentially about to start, in my opinion, we also have quad witching on Friday. This is going to affect NIO as well, the volatility. So please be ready for that too. But anyways, for tomorrow, I am anticipating NIO to trade pretty flat. And I don't expect too much volatility tomorrow unless we get a break to the downside. So if NIO holds up, we're just going to chop back and forth tomorrow, most likely. And if the market starts tanking, we see SPY break below, like, for example, SPY starts hitting, I don't know, 397, 396. We start breaking below that 394, 393. If that's the case, NIO is going to come tanking down too. We're going to see NIO break below 11.95, and we're going to see 11.5, 11.4, and possibly 11.3. Break below 11.3, and this thing is going to crash to 10.5. It's the honest truth. I know people don't like to hear that, but please remember, I'm not a big, huge bear for the long term on NIO. I'm actually super, super bullish on NIO for the very long term, looking at their fundamentals and etc. But for the short term and medium term, as the market is still going to be likely showing signs of downside, I do believe this will affect NIO anyways. So anyways, like I said, thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Please enjoy it. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still very bright. And peace out.